Hello, I'm Eileen Murphy, Vice President of Government Relations with New Jersey Audubon. Today I had the opportunity to speak with New Jersey Senator Bob Smith, who represents the 17th Congressional District in New Jersey. Smith chairs the Environment and Energy Committee in the New Jersey State Senate. He has sponsored legislation reforming the Garden State Open Space Acquisition Program to focus on water resource protection, preservation of the highlands, providing a continuing source of revenue for New Jersey state parks, and setting in place measures to improve water quality in the Barnegat Bay. He has also sponsored 2 constitutional amendments approved by voters to provide stable funding for open space, farmland, and historic preservation, and to dedicate natural resource damage litigation awards to restore the environment. We are pleased that he has carved out some time to speak with us here at New Jersey Audubon on the issue of the day, coronavirus pandemic, and to discuss his continued work supporting conservation issues throughout the state. Welcome, Senator Smith. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the district that you serve.
So I've been in the legislature over 30 years. Mm-hmm. Half of that time in the Assembly, about 16 years, and the rest of the time in the State Senate. In both houses, my primary specialty area was environmental issues. Mm-hmm. My background in New Jersey started in the 1970s. My wife and I moved to New Jersey from Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I started working at Middlesex County College as a professor of environmental science and chemistry, and got a graduate degree and master's in environmental science. Became a candidate for a PhD in environmental science. And then I saw lawyers were running the world, so I switched to law school, Seton Hall Law. Served on my local environmental commission, local planning board, became a member of the town council, mayor, ran for the assembly, and the assembly 16 years in the Senate ever since.
Do you ever miss the science? I ask because we both went to Rutgers. I got my PhD at Rutgers. You stopped short of getting a PhD at Rutgers. Do you ever miss the science, or do you get enough of it with some of the legislation?
Well, I miss teaching. I don't know if I'd be such a great researcher. So I did everything, the oral examinations, all the coursework for the PhD. And you got to the point where it was time to make a decision. And rather than go ahead and do the PhD thesis, I decided to go into law school. So I don't think I would be a great researcher. On the other hand, I can read a scientific paper and have some clue. I also have a master's in chemistry as well as a master's in environment. So it's the perfect background for the committee that I chair. It's helpful.
Absolutely. We can go in and speak with you on a highly technical level. Yeah. So currently, as you know, the citizens in New Jersey are focused on efforts to minimize impacts to their lives due to corona.
Right.
So can you share with us some legislative activities that you've been involved with?
So there's 2 levels of involvement. The one is the cosmic level, statewide level. We've now had 2 to 3 Senate sessions where we've attended remotely, and we've passed a pile of legislation to deal with the economic crisis that we're in. And there'll be more sessions to follow. But the kinds of things that the cosmic things that the legislature has done is try to find ways to increase unemployment benefits, to provide some relief from rent payments, to provide relief from mortgage payments, to request forbearance of the collection of some property-related debts, to try to stimulate small business. But it's a little hard to stimulate small business when customers can't go to the small business, all right? In my district, the thing that has been overwhelming our office are the unemployment claims. My staff is literally, I have 2 full-time staffers, have been every day working on helping people to apply for benefits and helping them to get the benefits. But it's not 2 or 3 a day, it's literally many dozens every day, and we probably, I think, have helped them several hundred people. So that's the individual thing within the district that we're doing to try and help people.
So what can you share about what's coming down the road? Any legislative fixes, any programs to help individuals or businesses that you can foresee coming up?
The answer is yes. But a lot of it is guessing as you go. So every day is a new day. Every day there's a new idea. Some of the ideas are good, some of them a little crazy, a little off the wall. But I think the biggest single thing that's going to be coming up is a COVID bond issue. Maybe to help not only the state government recover, but maybe local governments. One of the things that's happening at the local level is people aren't paying their taxes. They've had an extension of time to pay the taxes. They've had a little extension of time paying mortgages. Well, at some point, that extension is going to end. And that's the point at which I think there's a lot of misery now, but multiply it by 10. And unlike the federal government, we are limited by our Constitution and what we can spend. We can only spend what we take in. So I don't have all the answers. I wish I did, but we're looking for them constantly.
So switching gears a little bit, can you tell us a bit about the conservation legislation that you have supported and hope to continue support once the COVID-related issues are adequately addressed?
Well, you've talked about past and future. So the past, we have a whole bunch of biggies. The finding the Holy Grail, which is a stable source of funding for open space. We've done that by changing the Constitution, and we've also set up allocation formulas for open space acquisition, farmland preservation, and historic preservation, and that's in pretty good shape. We have $150 million a year that's being used for those purposes, absent any other spending. We've done a lot with solid waste, the Recycling Enhancement Act, electronic waste management. That being said, the new initiative, and I'm hoping to have the first hearing on a recycled content bill. And by the way, we just passed and had signed food waste, which is a whole frontier area in the solid waste area, hoping to set up a whole new recycling system for food waste. That being said, our recycling system is broken right now. We're going to go forward with a recycling content bill, which means that products sold in New Jersey will have whether it's paper or plastic or glass or whatever, will have a mandated requirement of a certain amount of recycled content. What you're doing is creating markets for recycled materials. Right now, there are not great markets, and recycling is becoming a big line item in the local budgets. It used to be a break even, or maybe you make a few pennies, but now it's the numbers are going up because the stuff's not being recycled, it's going to landfills. And when you have to pay tipping fees at landfills, those fees are very, very high. So that's going to be one of the newer initiatives. In June, I'm going to have my first Environment Committee meeting with bills, and what it's basically going to be the same agenda that we had back in March when everything was canceled. All right, so we'll get that hearing back up. And of course, the biggest problem with having hearings is that there's a limited capability in the State House to do them. So you can't have 7 meetings going on at the same time. In fact, the Office of Legislative Services hopes to have 1 a day. And you have to pre-register to speak. It's a big deal. So we're going to try and get that committee agenda for March completed in the first meeting in June, and then the second meeting in June will be for discussion only. And I'm hoping that's the recycled content bill. And of course, waiting in the wings, we still have our plastic bag bill. We're trying to ban single-use plastic bags and styrofoam in New Jersey. It's passed in the Senate. It needs to pass in the Assembly. But I can certainly understand with COVID, that's sucked all the oxygen out of the room. And I imagine it's going to take a little while for that to get back on the Assembly agenda.
Now You touched on the single-use plastic bags a little bit. What would be the perfect piece of legislation?
Well, I think the bill we have is pretty good.
Mhm.
One that came out of the Senate. You already have something under 60 towns in New Jersey, which is about 10% of the towns already enacting local ordinances. Of course, is there 60 different ordinances. So even for the supermarkets, they don't know what they're doing or not doing in those towns. So I think we need one law for the state. And what it would do is to put a time limit on single-use plastic bags, hopefully something on the order of a year, so that they no longer be used in New Jersey. And the same thing for the styrofoam, that would not be a packaging material in supermarkets, or for that matter in restaurants, because these plastic materials are both an environmental threat and a health threat. What the leading universities of New Jersey are finding is that we have microplastics in our freshwater and our seawater. And every sea creature they open up, there's plastic particles. And when you say they're in fish and in other organisms, that means they're in food. All right. And some of these materials are suspected carcinogens, and when they get into your body, they bring other organic chemicals. So the health crisis is that we may be exposing our populations to really serious chemicals in their body. And of course, the environmental problem is we have continents of plastic waste in our oceans, and that's awful. So I think the best bill is the one that gets rid of them as soon as possible.
And speaking of water quality and microplastics, we don't know a whole lot about the human health effects of ingesting microplastics.
Yes.
There's a lot of unknowns. We started with the perfluorinated chemicals years ago, when the PFAs were just starting to be found in New Jersey and Ohio, West Virginia. I want to ask you about this because I worked on this 15 years ago when I was at Department of Environmental Protection, and I see that you are also a supporter of developing health standards for drinking water for Can you tell us, why is it important to regulate these chemicals in New Jersey or in the United States in general?
Well, first of all, I think it's beyond suspected impacts on human health. I think it's pretty much proven that they have a huge impact on human health in a very bad way. Cancer, other diseases of our organs, they're just bad stuff. And we have serious hotspots of these chemicals in New Jersey, especially in South Jersey, where you've had a number of chemical companies that were making them. They were the coatings on the nonstick pans, among other things. So they're in groundwater, they're in water supplies, and you need a standard. And the reason you need a standard is that puts a requirement on the water treatment system to make sure that their processes remove the chemicals either to zero or to an unbelievably low level. So I'm hoping for very significant and strong standards quickly in New Jersey's future.
Okay, so another area I noticed on your environmental plan is green energy. Can you share some of your ideas on wind energy or other sustainable forms of energy for New Jersey?
Sure. So both areas, wind and solar. We've just hit the 5.1% solar landmark. And in 2018, we did a law to extend the SREC, Solar Renewable Energy Certificates, subsidized funding for solar, and extended it for another 2 years until the state reached 5.1% solar. So we've reached it. So now the SREC program is over. We're going to go into a transitional program. The problem with solar is that we did solar legislation to try and bring back the solar market. It had been too successful. There are too many SRECs being created and the SREC market crashed. So we did legislation that had moved forward the renewable portfolio standard, but Christie would not sign the bill unless he limited where solar could be placed in New Jersey. So what he basically said, it needs to be a brownfield or a landfill, a contaminated site, all right? And the reason for that is that there was a concern that solar facilities would consume all the open space in New Jersey or consume all the farms in New Jersey. In any case, that's the way the law was written. That's about 6-8 years ago. And the problem with that is we're never going to meet our goal. If that's the only place you can put solar, we're never going to meet our goal. So the way we can meet our renewable energy goal is with what's called grid scale solar or dual use solar. And I'll tell you the difference. Grid scale solar is low to the ground, about 4 feet off the ground, solar panels. And it can be built very inexpensively and can generate a lot of electricity. But if we want to meet our 2050 goal of being 100% renewable, we need 25,000 acres of land. Now, 25,000 acres of land, you pull your hair out, but it's not that much. We have about 900,000 open acres in New Jersey, and that doesn't count the rooftops of warehouses. We could be the Saudi Arabia of solar if we did the rooftops on the warehouses, and if we allowed grid scale solar on some farmland and open space. If you want renewable energy, you have to allow grid scale solar to produce it. The other kind of solar is dual use solar. And this is a very new concept in solar energy. Instead of building low to the ground grid scale solar, you now build high solar, 12, 14 feet, and you farm underneath it. And it is being done in some states like Massachusetts. It's just getting started. So you can do cattle grazing, you can do soybeans, you can do berries, whatever. But dual use solar is more expensive to build, and you also have to have fewer panels. You need more sunlight getting to ground level. So what we're going to try and do is have a new solar program where grid scale solar is allowed. So that's going to be one of the bigger initiatives this year. On the wind side, my belief is it's not happening fast enough, even with the big goals. We have huge goals, 7,500 megs, and I forget by what year, but it's not going to happen unless certain other things happen. We now have what are called ORECs, wind renewable energy, offshore wind renewable energy subsidies. And they're going to be as expensive or more expensive than SRECs, all right? The state of Massachusetts has come up with a totally different concept. And their totally different concept is that they have passed legislation which says that a state government, generally under the BPU or the BPU equivalent, can package offshore wind and enter into what are called long-term power purchase agreements. So and they get the utilities of their state to agree to a fixed cost for 10 years. So in the case, for example, in Massachusetts, they had 400 or 700 megs long-term power purchase agreement arranged by the state, where the utilities agreed to buy electricity for 6.4 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, in New Jersey, we're selling it at 17. All right. So if you can acquire it at 6.4, God bless America. Two big things I'd like to see some progress on in New Jersey, and it deals with the overwhelming COVID problem. Anything that you want to do in the environment now that's going to cost significant money, a lot of resistance. Because our citizens are hurting, our governments are hurting. We want to provide essential services, police, fire, state hospitals, state police, you name it, they're essential services. And we still have pension obligations. So if you have a new idea that's going to cost money, it's got a big hill to climb. On the other hand, if, for example, we can get offshore wind at a cheaper price and with little or no subsidy from the government or the ratepayers, that's a happy thing. And likewise, on the solar side, if we can get cheap electricity from the solar side, and solar's been getting better and better on cost. That over the last 30 years, it's been unbelievable, the difference. But we need to get that reinvigorated as well now that the SREC program is gone. So that's what we're up to. It's a situation where what's good for the environment is also good for the pocket.
We did speak a little bit about open space and issues. This is important to you, specifically open space, green areas, and urban gardens. So tell us the ways that you support these issues.
I have an urban garden bill. And the source of it, actually I have two bills that would be interesting. One's called the Green Knesset Bill, and the other is the Urban Garden Bill, which both came from a trip to Israel that I took about 6 years ago. I went over with the American Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel, and we saw a lot of the things that they're doing over in Israel. So one of them was urban gardens. And what they were using, the way in which the urban garden would be used as a game changer for society in general. It would help poor people, to farm and get food. But they went beyond that. So one day a week they'd have the agricultural specialists come. Another day they might have a social worker come. And what they would try to do is integrate people of lower socioeconomic resources into mainstream society. Not only would they get the agricultural advice so they could grow lots of crops or different kinds of crops, but they would also get advice on seeking employment or how to enhance their skills, that kind of thing. So they use the urban gardens as a society changer. It's really amazing. So anyway, we need to do more of that in New Jersey. I had and have a bill that would set up 3 demonstration projects, north, central, and south. Had a very minor price tag to it of $150,000, but I'm worried about it because of the COVID financial crisis.
You currently chair the Senate's Environment and Energy Committee.
Yes.
How do you set that agenda for discussion with the committee in general, and how is it different now during the pandemic?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. The difference is I know that I might be able to get a bill out of committee, but I will not be able to get it passed if it spends significant amounts of money. That for the next 2 years, I think that's the guiding principle. But in terms of the agendas, they come from 3 different sources. One from me and the reading that I do. I get 3 newspapers every day. The biggest and toughest being the New York Times, and then the Star Ledger and the Home News. And by the way, that's where I got into politics in the first place. I used to be a newspaper delivery boy, and when I'd finish my route, I would always have a paper left to read the paper, and that's ultimately what got me interested in public affairs. So in any case, newspaper, good ideas, stuff that people send to our office, good ideas. Committee members have bills that they think are very good for the environment, or they have colleagues who have good bills, so they will also channel in. The Office of Legislative Services, I ask them periodically to review all the environmental bills that are in the legislature and ask what's meritorious, and then we try to move them ahead. So there's a pile of sources. In our office's case, although it's not true for the last 2.5 months, we would have at least 2 days every month where anybody can come in to talk about anything. Everybody gets a half an hour. So, and we had days that start at 9 in the morning and they go to 5 o'clock at night, and every half hour there's something different. And they come in with their best ideas. And a lot of these ideas are terrific. So there's a lot of information out there. You just have to be, when you see a really good idea, you got to snag it and get it working through the process.
How important is it for representatives like you to hear from constituents like New Jersey Audubon. Is that informative to you? Is it important to you?
Absolutely. I don't think we could do our job properly without hearing from not only from individuals, but groups like Audubon. And by the way, you come up with some of the best ideas ever. I read about the World Series of Birding and the adaptations you made to the virus, and I said, they were brilliant.
It was our best year in history.
For next year, you might want to have dual tracks. You
We
might
are-
have a local World Series of Birding, and then you might want to have the cosmic one. So
Great.
keep on informing legislators what's the right thing to do by the environment.
Yeah, one of the things we're trying to do is link conservation issues with restoration issues, that if we're going to be resilient, let's think of green solutions, green infrastructure, green jobs,
Yep.
because they exist. And
Yep.
those are the types of things that we're interested in. And,
Absolutely.
sounds like you are too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so are there any closing remarks, anything you would like to say to New Jersey Audubon members at this time?
You're with an organization that really cares about the total environment, New Jersey and the rest of the world. Birds are the biggest indicators of where we stand on the health of the planet, and you're doing great work. So for all the Audubon members that may listen in, please continue what you're doing. Don't be discouraged by the stay-at-home stuff. Get out and, worst case, get out into the backyard and enjoy nature a little bit. It's a God-given right, and you're actively engaged in the fight to keep it beautiful. So keep up the good work.
Well, great. That was a great way to end it. I truly appreciate your time. Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you. You have a great day.
You too.